Hey everyone, welcome back to a silver lined relaunch. And okay, this is where I love to put the relaunches of life with artistic means, and then you add in the coaching that you guys are going to get little glimpses into today. And Leah Badertscher is here to talk about her journey, to talk about how she has evolved into, I'm going to let her share, but into this phenom as an artist and a coach and an author and a podcast, host and all these other things. And she works with world-class artists, but she also is passionate about the visionaries out there and taking them to that next level. So I know you all are either those world-class visionaries or want to be world-class visionaries. So let's jump in to this show. This episode is brought to you by the Fired Up Entrepreneur Program. And this is a program that we are so proud of. The results have been downright remarkable. And we want to invite you to get a glimpse of what it is like inside this program by inviting you to participate in the Business Boot Camp, which is a 5-day free event, and get involved with this because the pearls that we're going to be sharing each and every day are going to be the foundation for allowing you to make money, keep the money, grow the money, and strengthen not only your business, but also yourself. So please take advantage of this and join us at our next boot camp. You're listening to the Silver Lined Relaunch, and I'm your host, Hillary DeCesar, award-winning entrepreneur and transitional coach. Each week, I'll invite you to tune into inspirational stories, revealing how you too can turn ordinary experiences into the extraordinary. Feeling stuck? I'll share step-by-step strategies to fuel your ability to experience a life where silver linings are both abundant and possible. Hey, Leah, it's so good to have you here today.
Hi, Hillary. I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Oh my gosh. So it is interesting. I love the art part of this because I am one of those, like, if I could be an artist, I love everything about it. And we talked earlier about moving to Boulder. And one of the things that I really want to embrace is pottery. And I really want a little place that I can put a kiln and get back into what I love to do. And hearing your story and being able to share it with others, it's like, your mission is like, then do it, like go for it. So for those that don't know you, would you take us back, talk about your most significant relaunch and the silver linings around them?
Right. Well, thank you. And I hope we get to circle back around and talk about your pottery dream and kiln, because I love that. I love that for sure.
It's so crazy. It's so crazy. Yeah, I mean, it's just, but I'm like, oh my God, I love doing it when I was, in my teens and in my early 20s. So who knows? All right.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I similarly, like, things that were alive in me and as a child and as a teenager and in my 20s, I didn't have, I didn't have the faith in myself then, or I didn't see others creating a life, and particularly a livelihood, doing creative work in the world, like thriving as an artist. I grew up on a farm in northern Iowa, and I was very imaginative. There was much about my childhood and about being in that landscape that is mostly horizon and mostly sky. And I had a lot of alone time and time in nature that did shape me, actually, as an artist. The environment did. I think the sacredness and the connection that I felt to forces greater than myself, that spiritual aspect definitely formed me as an artist. And yet then when I looked to the world and looked at the pragmatic side of like people making their way in the world as artists, it always seemed to be happening in like other places for other people. Like I lived in like flyover territory is what is often referred to. I don't think of it that way, but, and it seemed like the epicenters for the art world. There was no way I was going to go to Juilliard or somewhere in LA or be in the New York scene or the Paris or London scene. And then also being the daughter of farmers, I thought, well, I want to be able to support myself in the world. And I also had this dream of, like it was as a teenager too, I wanted to eventually help women and girls with education and economic empowerment. I had dreams of working with the UN to do that. And so I thought, well, eventually I get a degree in finance. I'll speak the language of money and economics. And then I went to law school, because what better way to also equip oneself with how to navigate areas in the world where you can work towards equity, justice, empowerment. And for all my creative dreams, and I was also told, well, you make a good enough living and you can do that on the side. So long story short, I kind of did creative things on the side, but never much about it until 2005. I graduated law school. And so I had a real legal education, a real JD, and real prospects for a traditional legal career. And I felt like a fake lawyer. Meanwhile, I felt like a true artist, and I had no art to show for it, though, like no paintings. I felt like a writer too. I felt like a creative at heart, but I didn't have any work to show for it, and not to mention formal training or education.
How old are you at that point? How old are you when you kind of had this realization that, you felt like you were, a fake lawyer, and other places have this art world that's out there, but it's not for me. Like I can't do that.
Yeah. So I would have been about 25, 26. Yeah. So my mid-20s.
Which, by the way, you look like you're like 25, 26. So
oh, I know you're
that doesn't give me anything here. And for those that aren't actually watching this, I'm like, all right, I have no idea how old you are, but okay. So what are we talking? Like 10 years then? What?
Yeah, no. So yeah, that was, so I'm 42 now.
Yeah. As I said, everyone, she looks amazing. And yes, we're going to be asking at the end, what's her favorite beauty product? And hopefully she's going to give us something like spectacular. But okay, so you have this like kind of calling, it's bubbling up inside of you.
Right.
And you have, you become a lawyer, you're practicing at this time. And you're just like, what am I doing? Because I think this really resonates with people. What you're saying is that, for so many of us, we think we're supposed to do something. We get to the point of doing it and we're not fulfilled. We're not happy. We're not at that place of, success, of what we envision success to be. And you had this happen and all of a sudden you're like, wait a second. How did you move from that into, I've got to do this?
Well, I'm the way you articulated that, I think is wonderful, because I do think it will connect with people listening. And I think one of the ways I did it that I want to make clear is something that I had to overcome is this sense that, well, come on, Leah, you should be grateful. You just had 2 amazing educations, and other people are able to do this. Other people are able to just put their nose to the grindstone, put their head down. And why can't you just be happy with this? And I really had to work through this inner dialogue that was going on. I mean, I heard some from the outside, but I know now, like, the only reason I paid attention to any of these voices from the outside was because they were mirroring what was happening for me internally. And that internal conversation was, why do you need more? Who do you think you are? And are you crazy? You're going to be an artist? Really? I mean, where's the art? Where's the proof? Where's the evidence? Where's the money? Like, what about your bills? What about, responsibility? And I was married at that time too. And my husband was still in his graduate program. And he, he is a very analytical person. He has his PhD in like he's a mathematician and PhD in business, like finance and accounting. And he too was like, you're doing what?
Yeah.
So it was,
You know what? This resonates with me because I went from corporate world where I was literally killing it to all of a sudden I'm like, I think I want to start my own business. I think I want to get into, and this was 20 plus years ago. I think I want to, start to help others achieve their dreams. And they're like, what? My ex-husband was like, what are you doing? Like, what? Huh? Why would you do that? Keep going in the corporate world,
yes.
keep going up the ladder. And it's like, I'm not feeling it.
Yeah, right. Like it's that you all this, that voice, for me, what it really came down to, I realized I had a decision to make, that this could be a turning point for me if I acknowledged the sacredness and I want to say the gravity of the situation, that my life is also sacred, and that this knowing that was arising within me. I thought, well, what is more real than that? How many things in my life have I ever felt like that, where, because people's questions are like, what makes you think? What makes you think? Where's the evidence? How can you prove that you're going to be able to do this? And I know my answer was unsatisfying to them, but if I just sat with myself in my heart of hearts, I'm like, this knowing that I feel, though, if something that comes up through you occurs only to you, like it's been planted in you, if that is not the most real thing in the world, then I don't know what is. And I realized, like, I could dismiss this and think that I was suffering from, delusions of grandeur. Or I was realizing, this is my one life. Do I really want to go through my life like dismissing myself? And if I do that now,
this is your one life.
Right.
And I really continue to dismiss it. I mean, eventually you got to say, this is a calling. This is your intuition is like 3 alarm, whatever that alarm fire is. Like, it's like, go,
right.
It's go time. It's like, you have to do this. I get that.
Yeah.
But my brain is like on fire right now. Like, how long from when you leaned into it and you didn't have the support, you didn't have everyone being like, yeah, you go, Leah, this is going to be awesome.
Right.
Instead, you had the naysayers. You're like, yeah, I get it, but I'm doing it. How long did it take before you started to reap the rewards of your labors?
I felt like it took about 5 years to really start like hitting my groove with certain things. And
they do say 3 to 5 years is what you've got to give, any new business, this, ability to say, oh, it's going to take off in the first year. You're going to get the 6-figure, get the 7-figure. It's like, you know what? Realistically, set the foundation right. And be able to have it scale and continue on. So 5 years and then
yes. And what you said there too about setting the foundation right, I think that's essential. And I think that was a decision I made early on too, because I started to paint while I was still practicing law. Like I set up a makeshift studio in our grad school condo basement garage. And I started to paint and was like leaning into that. And it took, though, like I felt the art in me, and and it really came alive for me a lot too. I was a triathlete, and something about movement and nature, particularly like
is there anything you haven't done? You're a triathlete. You've been, you've written a book, you have a podcast, you're an artist. And by the way, we're going to hear how amazing an artist you are. Yeah, really. I'm wow. Very,
And I think too, it's one of those things that, like, at once upon a time, I heard a lot more of, don't you think you should niche down? Don't you think you should pick one thing, and instead of being a jack of all trades and a master of none? And I just want to mention that too, because I know there are some people who do, like, like I love Liz Gilbert, and I've heard Liz Gilbert say, I knew I wanted to be a writer since I was so young, and it was the one thing I focused on, and I was like a hammer. And I think some people, that is their destiny, that is their creative lineage. And I think there are also others like me who are like, they love so many things in life. Like my umbrella company, I mean, the work I'm most known for is the art school. And my umbrella company, my first company, the name I actually thought of when I was in law school is Renaissance, because I've always been fascinated by the Renaissance and by that flowering of human creativity and genius. And to me, Renaissance speaks to a more feminine connotation of that, and one that is just not on like cerebral intellectual prowess, but is like this creativity that has a very feminine aspect and a very spiritual, even divine aspect to it. And I like, I just refuse to believe that all of these things that I love, that makes me a flake. I just refuse to believe that.
I have to take a step back here and say, it is people that have that unilateral focus. There are those that absolutely have to do it. And there are, and I know we at the relaunch, company, we teach this, you can't boil the ocean when you first start out. You got to have a focus. You do, right? Because there's too many distractions. But allowing different things to come into your world is so important, to be open and available.
Yes.
To allow for all of the incredible things that are possibilities. We always talk about powerhouse of possibilities, right? But when you're trying to take this step and you're trying to initially get into art, were you focused on a lot of different things, or were you just focused on, I got to get this art, I got to get the art school up? Tell us about that. Because I think sometimes you hear like Tony Robbins has, 100 different companies, and these really successful people have all these different things they're working on. And sometimes it's a little overwhelming for the person who's just starting out.
Yes. And, and what I have found is it is an art if you want to be like a Renaissance woman. Like it is an art. And what I think is one of the master keys is to cultivate a state of abundance within yourself, because sometimes like the multi-passionate person, it can move into the shadow where you are very diffuse and you're not focused, and therefore you're not creating traction, and you're not working towards mastery, and you're not actually moving, you're not evolving, and it feels unsatisfying. But trust yourself to know that when you're doing that, and that I find that oftentimes that comes from a place of scarcity, like more of a fear of missing out. Oh, I got to do this. Oh, what about this? Oh, I better take that online course. Or, oh, I better like sign up for 5 different art classes and a coaching there's like, that is more like coming from scarcity, and which I completely understand and have been there. Like life is short. There's all of these amazing things. And then too, if you are like living in the modern world, you get a lot of messages that would suggest that you're falling behind. Here's how you have to make it. Oh, you don't speak Mandarin and you're not fluent in all of these things. And that's different though than like trusting the intuition that draws you to different areas. Like I knew I was very nurtured and fed in mind, body, and spirit by movement. And so I was a triathlete, I was a yogi, I became a Pilates and yoga teacher, and then that led to meditation. I knew for me that was
also a chef. Can you cook?
Oh my God. So that was my part-time job in law school.
God, I knew it. I felt like I got this intuitive hit. I bet she's a good cook too.
I love to cook.
All right, everyone out there. All right. You know what? We strive. We have, goals. We have people that I'm like, oh gosh, that is so darn funny.
Yeah, it is. That is funny. Yeah, I do love to cook, and I did work for a caterer as one of her sous chefs for a while in law school. Yeah. But that was like my way to balance out the crazy of law school. But I too have I know myself now when I am in, oh gosh, I want to do this, and it's coming from a scarce place versus, oh, that's really coming from my heart. I'm being led. I'm following my intuition or my creativity. And it also, I think too, one thing that has served me well is to think about taking the long view. And it's something I always
as an athlete, makes total sense, right? You can't be thinking about this mile, that mile. You got to be thinking about, like, ultimately,
right.
are you going to save your energy to get to the distance?
Yeah, yes. And it requires like a bifocalism where you are like, as an athlete, you're like, okay, this mile, I can't just, I'm not just phoning it in. I'm here to train. And, and like with my art, I'm like, I'm not just here to check off like, oh, I was in the studio today. I'm like, I'm actively cultivating. Like, I think creativity to me is a way to evolve your consciousness, because it's a practice. It's an activity where you have to be awake. So you're awake in that moment, but then also thinking long-term. So I know, like, there are things that I'm doing today where there's no immediate gratification. There's no immediate payoff. If I don't do it, no one's going to know but me. There's no immediate consequence, but I'm doing it because I'm looking down the road to like my artist self at 70.
Ooh,
Like,
I love when people go from that future self looking back and saying, where do you ultimately want to be and what are the steps and the actions you need to take? How would you describe the art you create for those that can't see the little teeny corner of that piece of art in the background?
yeah.
How would you describe it?
I would describe it, if you wanted a description of a genre, like abstract expressionism is probably the closest that most of it fits. It is in a very intuitive process for me. And it is also very, I made this other decision when I first started out. And that was that, like, first and foremost, this needed to be about, yes, it was about the art and my spiritual evolution, because I quickly was discovering, like 2 months into my basement garage studio experiment, I'm like, oh, I'm about to make myself as miserable doing this as I often made myself in law school. And like, I'm not going to do that. That's not what this is about. And I could also see that, you know what, I could create a career in law where I also don't make myself miserable. But either way, I think when I wake up, I took the long view again. I'm like, when I'm 40 and I have a corner office and I'm a partner, or working to be a judge or anything like that, that seemed interesting to me, it seemed like it'd be satisfying on some level. Will I still have this desire to be an artist? Will I thought, gosh, what could have happened if I would have put the last 15 years, if I would have dedicated that to cultivating my creativity and to seeing what I could do? And then I put myself in the other scenario. Like,
Wait. So talk to me. What's the answer? I mean, now you've got the power of hindsight vision.
yeah.
And, we often talk about silver linings. What do you think? If you had focused for 15 years on your career, your law career, judge, whatever you were going to do, how do you think that would have changed you as a person today?
I mean, I don't know that I can guarantee this, but I am like 99.999% sure that I would still want to have explored this, that I would have thought, gosh, what if? And, and I had some really rocky, like, ups and downs. Like, during that time, things to work through. And I'm so grateful to that earlier version of me, especially the one that was like so vulnerable, creating art when it didn't look like art to anybody else. And when it didn't look like evidence that I was an artist to anyone else, and creating a business when, because I heard a lot, well, you're an amazing coach. I know you're an amazing coach, but you probably don't have what it takes to be a successful entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. I heard that a lot too, and worked through that a lot too. And built up my pile of failures and organic wisdom from that failure. And I'm like, I'm so grateful to that earlier, because that's really where the heroics happen, is when you're doing the thing and you don't have payoff and you don't have accolades and you don't have evidence, but you're coming back to your faith. And like I said before, coming back to, for me, it was like that inner knowing. I'm like, do you want to live from this place, Leah? Do you want to live from an inner knowing place and see what
heroics happen? Yeah,
yeah.
that is so true. It is fascinating, though, that given where you grew up with the horizons and the sky and the nature, that you went down abstract expressionism, right? Versus like, the scenery, and, you really went, and I'm looking again at that, small glimpse, and I went to your website and checked everything out. So talented. It's tapping into your inner soul, your inner essence, your art.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you. I think that, again, like that particular landscape, when it's so much horizon, so much sky, it lent itself to being very attuned to an inner landscape. While also attuned to the outer. And I think it was great for developing a connection to an imaginative landscape. And I do feel like, you asked about how I would characterize my art, intuitive. Like, to me, it's about taking what I sense and a real, it's a knowing that I sense. I can't see it, smell it, hear it, taste it, or touch it, but I know it's real. And then it's having this medium of paint and substrate, surfaces, to take some of that invisible sense and knowing that I have and make it visible. And that just gives me goosebumps even as I talk, because I think that's what art is. That is why I think art is a mystical opportunity for all humans, because we all have this ability to be connected to the unknown and to the invisible, and yet very real. And then having art, that activity where you then translate it into the visible, that is just a sheer privilege and honor and joy as a human. And there's something healing about it. And when you have that energy of what you sense in the invisible flowing through you into the visible, to me, it is like breathing. It's like being tapped into this vein of life force that brings a vitality to your person, to your being, to your life. It's innately healing. It's innately life-giving. And I think it's not just for, like, quote unquote working artists. It's for all humans have this ability. And I think art is like one of our gifts to be able to. And so when anyone tells me, oh, I'm not creative, but I just keep thinking about watercolors, or I just like, do it because it, Carl Jung said too, the hands will, if there's a mystery with which the mind, or a problem with which the mind has struggled in vain, like the hands will yield to that mystery. Like and it's not that it solves it, but it's somehow something being in our body and embodying these invisible but real forces and bringing them to fruition. It's an experience of the ineffable. And I think too, like in our culture, there's been too much of, well, that's just for special people who are artists. Like, no, that's for all the special people who are humans. And it is an experience of soul. And it doesn't matter what you believe, who you believe, what you don't believe. I think this gives you an opportunity to experience more of who you really are.
So this is the synchronicity here is crazy, because just this morning when I went on this hike, I decided to open up my phone and I talked about invisible versus visible. And then you hit it so well. And then this idea of intuition and leaning into it. And what is it really, how does it transform into the visible, which then somebody looking at your art can feel that artistic intuition you put into it. But the way I would see it is different than somebody else. And so the gift is, and this is why I love art so much, the gift is in the eye of the beholder. Yeah. I mean, it just, I love everything about it. So I always do this at the end of the show. I always talk about, I like to do a little rapid fire questions.
Yes.
What is the craziest thing that you have ever painted?
The craziest thing I have ever painted. Oh gosh, yeah. I think the largest commission I have done yet to date, I believe it was like a 6 foot by 8 foot commission. And I love my clients, particularly like my collector clients, because like when I do commission, someone doesn't say, here are the photos of my family or my dogs or what I want. They know how I work. Like they know that I work very intuitively. And I ask them questions, more of like an intuitive questionnaire. It's kind of like like, is this a reading? I'm like, it's not a reading. It just helps me tap into your psyche.
Yeah, which is awesome.
And then I take all that and I take all of it in. And so that painting in particular, like it was with a lot of my paintings at the end, I'm like, whoa, I didn't know I had that in me. I just had no idea that that's what it was going to be. And so with this one, particularly on that large of scale, it just had all of these different elements, and particularly some elements that, are, it was affirmation to me that I was not just painting it from me. I was painting something from her and for their family too, because a lot of the elements in there were not ones that I don't have a source for in my background or my psyche. And so that was pretty wild. And they were living in Toronto at the time. So then I also had to I did drive it over the border, like take it off, roll it up, drive it over the border. So yeah, that one.
How many pictures that you have painted do you have hanging in your house?
Of my own paintings?
Mm-hmm.
I currently have sold, like for my bigger paintings, all but 3. And so one of those is like, I won't ever sell. I actually sold that one 3 times.
I want to know about the one you won't sell. That's what fascinates me. Like, why are you holding on to that specific one?
Yeah, because that one I sold once, and I had it listed for 5,000, which at that time for me would have been like a helpful chunk of change.
Yeah.
And so I was excited. And then I was like, my heart just hurt. And I realized it was too significant of a painting for me personally, that it meant too much personally. It was like,
so did you tell the people, no, you can't buy it now?
I did. I'm so sorry. I said, I'll have other paintings coming soon, but I just realized.
And you can have first choice, but you can't have this.
Exactly. Yeah. That was like it's called Poppy or Poppy Dreams painting. Yeah. That one's just it's too mine. And then another one, I sold twice. Here's like where also I've grown and listening to my gut with pricing. And it's like what I teach my clients in the art school too. Like, don't look to the market to determine your value. Like, you determine your value and like hold on there.
100%.
So like I had this one painting, and very intuitive painting and very significant again I felt like for me, but in general, for this rising tide of feminine creativity. And it's called She Rising. And I went to do my intuitive price check, and I wrote down 25,000. And I was like, do I mean 2,500? I'm like, no, because it has to be a small painting if I sell one for 2,500 anymore. I'm like, 25,000. Oh my God, who do I think I am? But I'm like, no, that's what it is. And so I'm like, okay, maybe I'll just compromise and list it for 5. I listed it for 5, and I had a buyer in 5 minutes. And I was like, no, I'm sorry. I mislisted that. And so
I just go back and say, I'm sorry, it's now 25,000.
Well, then I'm like, okay, at that time, I'm like, I still had such a upper limit at that time with 25,000. I felt so uncomfortable. And I'm like, 10, I'll put it as 10. And then a couple of weeks later, someone that I know from locally said, I was on your website. I really want to buy a painting from you. And can you tell me more about this one? And I was like, oh gosh, first of all, it just wasn't a good energetic fit for this. And I helped them find a different one. But just that in that moment, sort of like the feeling that I was going to be sick, I'm like, you just have to list it for 25 and hold it there. That's like what it wants to be.
Did it sell?
No, I still have it now.
So we all have to go check it out. All right. So hold on. So it's still there, so we can all check it out. I also would love in the show notes to show the poppy, the one that you really love. That you
Yes, yeah.
I'd love to just see it personally. Okay. So I always ask as my final question, actually my second final question, what is your favorite beauty product, given that you look so good, by name?
Oh, thank you. You're so kind. I want to give a shout out to one of my clients, Nicole, for this because she first sent me a sample, and I think she had been raving about May Lindstrom and her product line forever. And because this particular client is just like a skincare guru.
Uh-huh.
And she's like, this is amazing. And I probably would not have ever tried it, but she sent me for my birthday, like a smaller version. And I'm like, oh, this stuff is delicious. You could eat it almost. It's called Blue Cocoon.
Love it. Is it a lotion? Is it?
It's like a balm.
Ooh,
and it's
Blue Cocoon, May Lindstrom.
Yes. And it lasts forever. It takes just a little bit, and you like melt it in your fingertips and just massage it over. And it's great, like over sensitive areas, but it also smells delicious, and it's all natural.
I love this because being now in Boulder, the Colorado air, I am up at 5,300 elevation. I am drying out. I'm going to look like I'm weathered in about another 2 weeks. So we will definitely try this out. And the last question I ask is, what does a powerhouse of possibility mean to you?
Oh, I love that. Just that phrase. And I love the energy of that. To me, a powerhouse of possibility is someone who, Emily Dickinson wrote, I'd rather I want to dwell in the house of possibility all the days of my life. It's to live in that place where you are a possibilitarian. You see, there could be obstacles, but your mind is oriented towards, like an artist uses everything. It's material for your life. It's material for your next adventure. It's a way to cultivate your spirit. It's a way to build your business. It's, I think, a worldview, like someone who is a powerhouse of possibility. It's having that worldview of, I define me and I define my worldview. And then therefore I live where I see possibility and I create possibility.
I love that you just said it creates your worldview. That is so spot on. So I envision it too. Okay, well, for those that don't know how to get in touch with you, let us know, where can we find you? Where can we see these amazing, amazing artistic pieces? Let us know.
Oh, thank you. So I am on 2 sites. My art is www.leahcbart.com. And I also, when I'm doing things in progress, work in progress, I share on Instagram at LeahCB1 on Instagram. And I also have my art school coaching website is www.leahcb.com.
Love that. Well, thank you so much for being here. Again, you can find everything, and hopefully we will also have these pictures on with the show notes, and you can go to therelaunchco.com under podcasts, and it will be right there. Leah, thank you so much for bringing all of this energy, your insight. I love when you were sharing so many things, you were closing your eyes, just totally tapping into your source. So appreciate everything, and I'll look forward to continuing to follow you.
Thank you, Hillary. This has been so delightful and so nice to spend time with you.
Absolutely. We'll see you again soon.
See you soon.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Silver Lined Relaunch. If I said something today that resonated with you, will you please head over to iTunes right now and leave us a 5-star review and share this episode with others and help them find the silver linings as well. And don't forget, you can have immediate access to the show notes any giveaways, and the links to those amazing beauty products at therelaunchco.com/podcast. Until next time, there's always a silver lining, and now is the time to hit the reset button to relaunch those transitions into transformations.